Hi everyone, welcome to Rain's Kitchen and Garden. My name is Rain. This is part one in my series where I talk about how I've saved money by being frugal. As many of you know, my husband passed away about a year ago and I was left in a position of financial difficulties. It was tough transitioning from two incomes to one income so suddenly, so I had to decide what I would do. I had to cut down on expenses, I had to be more frugal, go without, change my routines and my spending habits, and try to find ways to save as much money as possible. Today, I'm going to focus on how I lowered my electricity bill. The biggest change that I made in the last year was with my electricity consumption. I'm going to show you a graph right now. This is actually my power consumption over the last 12 months. You can see from April through to December that the light blue is from 2025. From January through to March, the orange is what I've consumed in 2026. So starting June of last year, I started making gradual changes to lower my energy consumption. And I think I've done a pretty good job since June of last year in cutting things down compared to the last 2 years. During every month, I've managed to cut down my consumption by at least a third. And in February, I nearly got it down halfway. Woohoo! I think it's important to outline this. I live in a rural area, and unfortunately in this rural area, I pay more for electricity than people do in urban areas. This graphic directly from my power company's website shows it. It doesn't seem fair, does it? But I guess it has to do with the time it takes for the companies to come out and do repairs or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. And knowing that I pay more for my electricity than somebody does in a city, it encourages me to try to use less. Also, if you don't already know, I would suggest that you go to your power company's website or call them to find out when the peak hours are. Peak hours are when people tend to use the most electricity, and the rates are higher during peak hours. In my case, peak hours are Monday to Friday from 6 in the morning till 9 and 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. This is when most people in the province in Canada where I live use the most power. So I decided that I was going to work around the peak hours, and luckily my sleep schedule cooperates because I'm up at 4 in the morning. So when I wake up, I do most of the chores that require electricity before 6 a.m. And that's when I turn all the heat off in the house as well, and I put on the wood stove. So if you can find out when the peak hours are where you live with your power company, this can give you information that you can use to really cut down your consumption. I would say that would be rule number one, is to really educate yourself about your power company. Another big thing that I did was I invested in the wood stove. When I bought this house in 2020, it did have a wood stove, but there was a little crack in it, and I really didn't trust it 100%. I used it in cases of emergency when we lost power in the winter, but otherwise I wasn't confident using it at all. I'll tell you a story. In 1998, I lived in downtown Montreal in Canada during that famous ice storm that ravaged the east coast of Canada, and I believe the States as well. I was out of power that January for just over 10 days. It was terrible. You know, the mild weather quickly turned into cold weather, and there was a lot of rainfall. So this rainfall turned into ice, and it knocked out all the power lines. Nobody was prepared for this in the city. There was price gouging, there was looting. It was a very scary time, and it started to get really cold. And I remember trying to get heat from candles in my little apartment. And I had two dogs, these two pugs here, Winston and Spencer. And we would all cuddle under blankets trying to keep warm. It was really, like I said, very scary. And after living through that experience, I decided I would never be without an alternate source of heat ever again. So at that time, up until 2020, I had been renting, and I always rented cottages or houses after that experience because I wanted to make sure that I either had a fireplace or a wood stove that I could use in case of an emergency. So when I bought this house, I was pleased that there was a wood stove included, though I didn't really realize how badly in shape it was. So for the last 5 years, I'd been saving as much money as I could to purchase and to have a new wood stove installed. I was finally able to achieve that in the fall of 2025, and it's made such a huge difference with my heating bill. As I mentioned before, I'm up at 4 in the morning, and the first thing that I do is turn off all the heat in the house, and I start a fire in my wood stove. During the cold months of winter, I have to put on the heat at night or else it just gets way too cold in here. But as of April and probably all the way through to October, I am refusing to put the heat on at all, even at night. If there's a case where it's really chilly, I'm going to put something on or I'm going to put the wood stove on. And I do have a fan that I usually put next to the wood stove, and it distributes the heat to the back of the house. The room at the back of the house is also called the sunroom for a good reason, because during the winters on sunny days, that room gets really warm because the sun comes in all 5 of those windows and it heats the room up really well. So having the wood stove here in the front of the house is great. It heats the front, and in the back, the sun heats the back room most days. I also have curtains up in between the rooms where they meet the hallway to make sure that the heat stays in the rooms that I'm heating, especially overnight in the back room, because that's also my bedroom as well as my office area. Now, I wasn't sure how much wood I would need to heat my house. I have a small cottage here. It's no more than 1,000 square feet. And that wood stove that I have, it's not standard sized. It's a little smaller, but it is certainly efficient enough to heat my cottage. To be honest, some days I have to open the windows because it gets way too hot in here. I found somebody local who sold cords of hardwood, maple and birch, so I decided to purchase 2 cords, again, not really knowing how much I would need. The 2 cords cost me $600. On average, I was spending over $2,000 every winter on heat. This winter, I have not even gone through 1 cord. So my heating bill this winter has cost about $300. It's a big savings. It's a lot of work to get up every day, build a fire, keep it going, splitting wood, preparing kindling, but to save over $1,500 a year on my power bill, oh my gosh, so worth the effort. Now, of course, part of my electricity cost this year in the winter is heating my home overnight with the heat, but still the savings is phenomenal. Considering the cost of the wood stove and the installation, I figured this investment will have paid itself off in 2 short years. Now, here are some of the other ways that I've saved money on my electric bill every single month. 1, I stopped using air conditioning. Well, let me rephrase that. I used the air conditioning once last summer. And it was because I was doing a lot of cooking one day and it was sweltering hot outside and in the house. The dogs were all panting and they couldn't cool down. So I gave in and I froze up the house for about 5 hours and we all got some comfort. But honestly, I am trying not to use the air conditioning anymore ever because it's just too expensive. I have a fan that I can use, and of course, we can use wet face cloths to cool us down, right? In these next few photos, you can get an idea of what my living room used to look like. The only thing in the living room for the past 5 years that I lived here was the old wood stove, a deep freezer, pet cages, and a trunk that held all the pet food. It really wasn't a living room. Behind the deep freezer, you might notice there's a hatch door, and that leads to my basement. I decided last summer that I was going to stop using my deep freezer. I had already made plans to have the new wood stove installed in the fall, and I wanted to have a living room. So removing the deep freezer, which by the way was plugged in 24/7, was going to be a huge adjustment for me. I do monthly shopping, so I used to put everything in the deep freezer. I just chuck it in. I've changed my habits, and now I use other methods to preserve food that will last for the entire month. I pressure can, I water bath can. I use my dehydrator once in a while. And I use the little freezer that's on top of my fridge as well. And just in passing, this is what my living room looks like right now. It's so cozy and I love it. The only drawback is that I can't use the hatch door to get into the basement, which is where my washer and dryer are. But I just kind of walk around the house now and I enter through the basement back door. It gives me a little bit of exercise, right? So after unplugging the deep freezer, I was on a mission to unplug everything in my house. Any appliance that I use in this house is unplugged until I use it. The only appliances that are permanently plugged in are my fridge, my water heater, the water pressure tank, and my well pump. Everything else is either unplugged or on a power bar that is turned off when not in use. I replaced my big stove with a small toaster oven that I'd had in storage and hadn't used in ages, so I was actually able to unplug my stove. Instead of keeping the stove plugged in just to use the burners, I pulled out an old hot plate that I'd had for years. And anytime I need to put something on the burner, I just plug it in the hot plate. Think about it, friends. If you don't use your stove that often, it's plugged in 24/7. Same with your microwave. If you don't use your microwave all of the time, you're just using up so much energy keeping it plugged in to basically give you the time on a huge digital clock. Every appliance, everything that needs to be plugged in, even my washer and dryer, I unplug them until I use them. I have also replaced my bedside lamp with a few battery-operated candles that are really nice. I have a rechargeable book lamp that I use to read in the dark. I read a statistic that if you unplug appliances that you don't use, you can save up to $100 a year on your energy bill. If I'm not in a room, that light is not on. And if it gets chilly, I put on a sweater or some warm socks. Typically during the cold months of winter, I'm always wearing a little hat on my head in the house anyway, a knitted beanie that I made for myself to keep my head warm. I would rather just put on more layers than turn up the heat higher. Now that I've seen the rewards of my efforts, I want to keep trying to find ways to save money because the power company keeps raising the rates. Another thing that I did was that I bought a tabletop dishwasher. I know what you might be thinking, Rain, how is a dishwasher going to save electricity? The way my plumbing is set up, it takes so long for the hot water to reach my kitchen sink. Major plumbing repairs are not in the budget, so I wanted to figure out how to save money when using hot water. Now, the tabletop dishwasher that I have is an energy saver, and I use the shortest setting whenever I wash dishes in it, and I never use the heat and dry cycle. I just open up the door and let the dishes air dry. I spoke to an electrician and he confirmed to me that I was in fact being more frugal because it takes more energy for my water to heat up, my water heater to heat up the water than it does for me to use my tabletop dishwasher 3 or 4 times a day. So also to save on hot water, I take quicker showers and I don't take super hot showers like I used to. I just thought of something. The advantage to not using air conditioning in the summer is that you get hot enough to be able to take cool showers. So that's another way that I save money on hot water usage. I take cool showers in the summer. I also keep a porch light on at night for safety and also in case I have to take the dogs out in the middle of the night. I can see if there are any critters on my property. And as soon as dawn breaks though, I turn those porch lights off. I've also replaced all of my light bulbs, which to be honest, I don't really use that many of them, with efficient LED bulbs. I was lucky enough to qualify for a program with the power company where they spray foamed my basement for free. This has contributed to a great decrease in my energy bill. Every winter, I use a special product. It's called Zip, and I seal my windows. The basement windows are sealed with styrofoam to keep the heat in. And I always make sure that the weather stripping is in good condition around my doors. Every winter, I put a quilt over my front door to make sure that there are no drafts that come in. It gives a little bit of a cozy look as well. In the summer, I never use my dryer. In fact, the only months where I use the dryer are the winter months. I have a clothesline outside that I use from April all the way through to November, actually. I use an old-fashioned broom and dustpan to sweep my house every day, though I do need to vacuum at least twice a week because of all the hairy dogs, but I only vacuum during non-peak hours. It's become a little bit of a game to me to figure out how much more I can save on my energy bill. But so far, I think I've done very well. One day I dream of solar power, and that, I hope I can install it one day. That would be really great. So friends, I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please give it a like and please do subscribe. If you don't want to miss out on any future videos, please don't forget to hit the notification bell and leave me a comment. I love your comments and I reply to all of them. Let me know if you have any more ideas on how to save on your energy bill. And please share this video with anyone you might think will enjoy it. Stay tuned for more videos on how to be frugal and save money in the near future. Thanks again for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next time on Rain's Kitchen and Garden. Bye!